Before my husband Steve became my husband, we were young and dumb and decided to live in Laramie, Wyoming. What can I say? We thought it'd be romantic to live in a state that had more cows than people. It wasn't. 9 months into our hellish tour of duty up north, we got married. The day we returned from our honeymoon, we got a phone call. My pap test had come back abnormal. Now I was given the choice to receive treatment in Laramie or go home to Dallas, where my parents lived. Like that was a difficult choice. I had visions of going to Laramie's finest large animal vet, Dr. Cletus the slack-jawed yokel. You must know him. And having him say, "Don't worry, Miss Dixon, we'll get you fixed right up. Clam! Bring me the Swiss Army knife and the branding iron!" No, thank you. I hopped the next flight to Dallas, making an educated choice. To me. As soon as I got home, my mother whisked me off to her massage therapist. Because to my mother, there were few problems in life that couldn't be cured with pampering and luxury. Like that night, she gave me a beautiful gift, a full-length fur coat. Because that's what happens in my family when you get cancer. You get a fur coat. As we danced around the pool that night during the lunar eclipse, I was too busy trying to be funny for my mom to actually be scared, to think that cancer could be a part of my life. She was too busy laughing at me. And one of our favorite sayings was, as I twirled in my coat, "I'm gonna go and tell the nurse tomorrow, thank you, but I brought my own gown that opens in the front." The next day I met the doctor. I swear to you, he was the bastard child of H. Ross Perot and George Bush. He said to me after the biopsy, he turned to me and he said, "Becca, it's real important that nothing penetrate your vagina for the next 8 weeks. You've had a very delicate surgery. Do you hear me? Penetration, bad, could lead to infection. Don't do it." Doctor, Laramie's a small town, but it's not like my husband and I spend our Saturday nights sticking Volkswagens in there. I was home alone at my parents' house when the biopsy results came. "It's what? Cancer? Are you sure? I mean, aren't I kind of young? I just got married." "Yes, I understand that cancer doesn't wait for wedding plans." "Okay, I'll see you today, doctor. Thank you." What's up with Southern culture? Why was somebody seemingly bringing me disastrous news and I was thanking him? I called Steve as soon as I got off the phone with the doctor. He told me he wished he could be there with me and that he loved me ever so. He said, when I told him that the doctor said we probably shouldn't have children, that since we were both adopted, it was just fine with him to carry on the family tradition of not being genetically related to our kids. His exact words were, "Baby, let's give our children a chance." I numbly shuffled back to my parents' room because at the time, after receiving this news and talking to Steve, I was no longer 26, but I was 6. And I desperately needed the comfort of their bed. I was half watching The Price is Right when my dad called. I told him everything in one frantic, crying breath. His first question was, like all Southern fathers, "Where's your mother?" I told him that Mom was away running errands, but I just got the news 5 minutes ago, and I was just really scared and alone, and this wasn't supposed to happen to me. How could this be, Daddy? I just got married. I just found the one. I was supposed to go off and have my life and have babies and move out of Laramie, in that order. He couldn't say anything. What do you say? He said, I gotta go, Beck. I was on a lunch break. I gotta go back to court. He hung up on me. As soon as Mother came into the house, she walked back into the bedroom. I lost it. I bawled. I reached out to her like a toddler who needed comfort. She sat down on the bed in that way that only moms can do, where the covers like squinch you real tight and comforting, put her arms around me, said, "Honey, it's okay. We'll get through it." I told her about Daddy hanging up on me. She looked at me and said, "Baby, you probably scared him. He didn't know what a cervix was before all of this." After I told her that we couldn't have children, or that we probably shouldn't have children, she put her arms around me and my head fit perfectly in the slope of her long neck, and she said, "Darling, if I could have a baby from my body, I wouldn't have you. And if you want a nice white baby, we'll get you one." Thanks, Mom. 8 weeks later, I had my final appointment with Dr. Bush-Perot. He checked me out. He said, "Just beautiful, Becca. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful cervix. It just looks perfect." Thank you. I've never quite received that type of a compliment. Then he scrunched up his face in the same way that my husband Steve does when I ask him to rub my feet. And he said, "Will your husband wear a condom? There's still a risk of infection." I was like, "Doc, we're newlyweds. If we have to oil ourselves up and do an interpretive German clog dance, to do it, we will." With the doctor's blessing, I caught the next flight to Laramie, which of course was delayed. 2 hours into the delay, we were all sent to the customer service representative, who was a lovely woman with a pinched expression on her face and a crocheted vest, who'd obviously had all of the joy sucked out of her life. I tried to be calm. I didn't cry. I told her I just really, really needed to get home. I had a husband to get to and a marriage to consummate. She looked at me and said, "All I can do is give you some drink and dinner coupons available at any restaurant in this town." Well, the restaurant was a nacho stand with that orange gelatinous cheese that you only see in ballparks. I was so frustrated at this point in time, now 4 hours late and getting home. I wanted to grab her by that crocheted vest, smack that pinched expression off her face and say, "Look, lady, I'm a newlywed who had cancer and I haven't had any sexual gratification in 8 weeks. So unless you plan on taking that cheese, spreading it between my thighs and getting busy, I suggest you put me on a plane right now." That didn't work. I made it back up to Laramie, and needless to say, after being greeted by my beautiful husband, I was given the most satisfying, the most exhausting 10 minutes of my newlywed sexual life. As I looked over at Steve, I realized it was all going to be okay, because there's nothing like beating cancer with a good humping. 6 years later, I'm still okay. Steve and I now live in Santa Fe. Thank you. But we got another phone call in September. This time it was my dad. He called to say that he had to have a procedure. No big deal, just a procedure. "Daddy, at your age, a procedure could mean a heart transplant. Please be specific." He told me he had melanoma, and his doctors wanted to see if it had spread to his lymph nodes. It had. I'm not ready for that. That's not supposed to happen now. I know cancer doesn't work on a time schedule, but he's supposed to live until he's 90. Everybody in his family lives until they're 90, and that's not right now. So sometimes I think about when he's gone. I'm wondering who will give me the best day of my life again. I was in the 2nd grade. I had a dentist appointment, and Dad took me because Mom couldn't. We were supposed to go right back to school, but we didn't. Dad took me to lunch, just when I thought lunch was the ultimate treat. He looked at me and he said, "Hey, you want to go see a movie? Do you want to go see that movie Star Wars?" What? Did I hear right? Was he just saying that he was going to miss work, I was going to skip school, and we were going to go see the movie that all my friends in the second grade were talking about right then? No. Really? You want to go see that movie, Star Wars? I had to be subtle. I managed to, sure. Was I too excited? Was he kidding? Did he mean no mother, no brother, just me and him in a movie theater? Wow. We went to see the movie. It was amazing. Dad told me about when he was a little kid and he used to go to the movie house in his hometown on Saturdays and spend all day watching double features. He also told me about how movies used to have newsreels and cartoons as well as serials, and that Star Wars reminded him of the old serials of his day. He also started calling me Chewbacca after the character. And he told me that to him, the ultimate luxury in the entire world was to go to see a movie in the middle of the day. Every time I'm home, we see 2 movies together. My mouth gets a coppery taste when I think about what he's going through now. In the 9 months since his diagnosis, there have been unrelated brain tumors, spots on lungs, masses on ribs, freckles on eyes. I'm pleading with him, stop going to the doctor. They're only finding stuff that scares the crap out of us. But he'll be okay, because I got a few words for you, Cancer. I know you, and I've beaten you before, and you may be attacking one of the greatest men that I know in my life. But let me tell you something. What you don't know about him is he's backed up by a strong family. We've beaten heart disease, we've beaten cancer, we've beaten drugs, and we know how to stick together. So when you're fighting with him, you're fighting with all of us, and you'll lose. And that's the truth, no matter what happens.